Oh man, it's unexplainable. It's just all you see is rubbish. All you see is burnt. Everybody's cars, houses, trailers, stores. It's just gone, wiped out. It's wiped out.
Apocalyptic. This is the word used to describe the recent wildfires which ravaged the west coast of the United States, an occurrence which grows more and more devastating with climate change on the verge. As the exponential growth of waste becomes a more imminent trigger for climate change and the disasters it could bring, it is important to redefine the narrative surrounding waste and explore ways in which it could be applied beneficially on individual, social, and architectural levels. Talent. A small town in Oregon is one of the victims of the wildfire, as half of the town was recently left crippled by the Almelda Drive wildfire in the fall of 2020. Before the fire, Talent was a quaint town with a relatively large Latino population, a thriving theater scene, and a Shakespeare festival that attracted thousands. Formerly known as Eden District, Talent was a community which thrived on farming, evident in its reputation as the agricultural hub of the Rogue Valley, as well as its annual tomato photo contest. It was a community which revered the act of sharing, but now it is merely a shadow of itself, with a tangible proportion of its vegetation burnt and 2,357 residential structures lost, leaving most of its inhabitants robbed of their shelter, their homes. But there is still hope for places like Talent, hope where other things die or lie to waste away. Because buried deep in the soil is a mushroom called fire morel, which only sprouts in the aftermath of devastating situations such as wildfires. The fire morel grows from a network of spores called mycelium, which are present at all stages of the mushroom life cycle. The mycelium could lay dormant underneath the ground for as long as 50 years, waiting for a fire to start in order to create perfect conditions for the fruiting body, that is the mushroom, to grow. While mycelium itself cannot be categorized under waste, when combined with agricultural or any other organic waste under the right conditions, it could produce furniture, packaging material, clothes, and building material, most notably in the form of bricks. Mycelium bricks or microbricks are more than an ideal choice for ravaged places like Talent, given their lightweight and self-extinguishing nature. They are also porous, water-resistant, and they absorb carbon. User mycelium produces a circular economy in the building industry in the sense that it upcycles agricultural waste and can be composted after the building's end of life to be used to grow plants. This creates a cradle-to-cradle cycle whereby it constantly replenishes itself. There is constant rebirth and therefore constant growth. Mycelium is a living being. That means the outcomes of the brick depends on the species of the fungi, as well as the nature of the drying process. If heated in the oven like any other brick, the fungi are killed and the brick becomes inactive. On the other hand, if air-dried or not completely heated, the fungi remain alive and under the right conditions, that is darkness and mist, the cultured fungi grow and the structure becomes a living, breathing thing. This means that if the right mycelium is planted, the walls could breed edible mushrooms, which the inhabitants could cultivate. It means life could be born out of the disaster, out of waste. The potential presence of the mycelium, particularly the fire morel in the aftermath of the wildfire, represents a rebirth and calls for a conversation regarding the relationship between the old and the new. That is why the site chosen, 2 empty lots cut between what used to be the norm and the ravaged aftermath of the wildfire, the Talent that was and Talent as it is now. It is therefore unsurprising that the structure on the site assumes the role of a mediator, physically straddling the South Pacific Highway, ultimately serving to bridge the 2 worlds of Talent. A community center by function, the structure comprises a series of spaces which serve to revive or restore the sense of home which most of the inhabitants of Talent have lost. On one side of the structure sits a communal kitchen and common area where people can cook, relax, and recuperate. The upper floor of the structure holds a memorial room to commemorate lost personal items, pets, and homes in the fire. A pavilion juts out at the back of the structure, creating an ideal area environment for composting, a process by which food waste decomposes over a period of time via thermophilic worms and bacteria, creating nutrients that will prove beneficial to the soil. The compost recovered will be used in the garden, where the soil of Talent can be replenished and the tradition of growing tomatoes and sharing can once again reign. On the other side of the structure sits the block dedicated to mycelium, a nod at the future which is being born from the fire. This block has been strategically placed in the lot closer to the ravaged parts of the town, as fire morels are more likely to grow in clusters there, given the extent of the damage. This block consists of laboratories where the mushrooms can be properly observed and treated, a mushroom playroom whereby one can explore the different ways mycelium can be applied in art and everyday material. The upper floor is dedicated to an exhibition room to showcase the hard work of the people of Talent in producing mycelium-related products. Underneath the structure sits a basement dedicated to the incubation and growth of cultured mushrooms. Given its natural, dark, and damp state, the basement is the dominant space where air-dried microbricks will be used for the walls, leaving room for cultured mushrooms to grow and be harvested. Linking the two worlds is a long, narrow space where people can wine and dine accordingly. The concept of a dining area is particularly significant as it is a space where a decent amount of waste, propelled by the act of eating, is produced. But it is also a space where the simple act of sharing is blatant, an activity which the structure aims to revive. The dominant dome shape of the entire structure emanates as a result of the natural compressive strength of the microbrick. It is achieved by planting the mycelium within an arched wooden frame, leaving it to grow and harden over time before applying some form of heat to render it inactive and dead. The solid mass of the opposing blocks is juxtaposed by the dining area, which is transparent to the public thanks to its acrylic sheeted walls held up by thin mycelium arches. The transparency gives inhabitants within the dining area an uninterrupted view of the highway it overlooks, as well as the might of the rogue valleys in the background. In some way, the structure is just as sturdy as the mountains it frames. A community center, yes, but an ultimate shelter for those who have lost theirs. Yet it constantly feels in transition, be it from the journey from the compost pavilion to the tomato farm, the journey across the highway and consequently the two worlds, starting from the open communal kitchen and culminating at the methodical mycelium laboratories, or from the dark and damp basement up to the lighter areas of the structure where movement easily flows. It's a canvas of subtle changes which allows for the old and new to exist harmoniously, allows for life to sprout from death, just as the people of Talent once again will. So perhaps there is a future worth building from the scraps of disaster, one facilitated by waste. A future where people can grow, share, and dine accordingly. A future where a community can thrive and feel safe again. And perhaps that future is just as transient, creating avenues for structures to be broken down and composted into the earth for a new life to take place. Yes, it is true that waste teaches that all things must come to an end, but it also creates the perfect opportunities for fruitful beginnings.